Welcome to Book Bytes, the Azle Library's 2021 Summer Reading Book Buzz program. I'm Liz, the Adult Services Librarian, and this week I'd like to welcome Library Director Curren to discuss this week's new and up-and-coming biography and nonfiction titles.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Book Buzz. This is Curren, the director at the Azle Memorial Library, and I've got a nice selection of nonfiction titles for adults that we think you will enjoy. These all came out recently and have had a lot of buzz about them. Our first title is a compelling and beautifully written story of resilience, friendship, and survival. The Nine, the true story of a band of women who survived the worst of Nazi Germany by Gwen Strauss, follows the true story of the author's great aunt, Helene Podolsky, who led a band of 9 female resistance fighters as they escaped a German forced labor camp and made a 10-day journey across the front lines of World War II from Germany back to Paris. The 9 women were all under 30 when they joined the resistance. They smuggled arms through Europe, harbored parachuting agents, coordinated communications between regional sectors, trekked escape routes to Spain, and hid Jewish children in scattered apartments. They were arrested by French police, interrogated, and tortured by the Gestapo. They were subjected to a series of French prisons and deported to Germany. The group formed along the way, meeting at different points in prison, in transit, and at the Ravensbrück. By the time they were enslaved at the labor camp in Leipzig, they were a close knit group of friends. During the final days of the war, forced onto a death march, the 9 chose their moment and made a daring escape. Drawing on incredible research, this powerful, heart stopping narrative from Gwen Strauss is a moving tribute to the power of humanity and friendship in the darkest of times. This book was published on May 4th, and it already has a 4.4 rating on Goodreads and a 4.5 rating on Amazon, and it's been reviewed by Booklist, Kirkus, Library Journal, and Publishers Weekly. Okay, our next memoir, Crying in Hmart by Michelle Zauner, came out on April 20th and has a 4.6 out of 5 stars on Goodreads and Amazon. That's a pretty high rating. In this story of family, food, grief, and endurance, Michelle Zauner proves herself far more than a dazzling singer, songwriter, and guitarist. With humor and heart, she tells of growing up as the only Asian American kid at her school in Eugene, Oregon, of struggling with her mother's particularly high expectations of her, and of a painful adolescence, and of treasured months spent at her grandmother's tiny apartment in Seoul, South Korea, where she and her mother would bond late at night over heaping plates of food. As she grew up, moving to the East Coast for college, finding work in the restaurant industry, and performing gigs with her fledgling band, and meeting the man who would become her husband, her Koreanness began to feel ever more distant, even as she found the life she wanted to live. It was her mother's diagnosis of terminal pancreatic cancer when Michelle was 25 that forced a reckoning with her identity and brought her to reclaim the gifts of taste, language, and history her mother had given her. Vivacious and plain spoken, lyrical and honest, Zauner's voice is as radiantly alive on the page as it is on stage, rich with intimate anecdotes that will resonate wildly, and complete with family photos. Crying in H-Mart is a book to cherish, share, and reread. This title has been reviewed by Booklist, Bookpage, Library Journal, and an ongoing starred reviewed by Kirkus, and positive reviews on Publishers Weekly. All right. For those of you who are looking for a new health focused cookbook, we have one of Esquire's most anticipated cookbooks for 2021, Everyone's Table Global Recipes for Modern Health by Gregory Gourdet. When Chef Gregory got sober, he took stock of his life and his pantry, concentrating his energy on getting himself healthy by cooking food that was both full of nutrients and full of flavor. Everyone's Table features 200 mouth-watering, decadently flavorful recipes carefully designed to focus on superfoods, ingredients with the highest nutrient density, the best fats, the most minerals, vitamins, and antioxidants that will delight and inspire home cooks. Gourdet's dishes are inspired by his deep affection for global ingredients and techniques, and from his Haitian upbringing to his French culinary education, from his deep affection for the cuisines of Asia as well as those of North and West Africa. His unique culinary odyssey informs this one of a kind cookbook, which features dynamic vegetable forward dishes and savory meat stews, umami packed sauces, and easy ferments, and endless clever ways to make both year round and seasonal ingredients shine. Destined to be an everyday kitchen essential and featuring 180 color photographs, everyone's table will change forever the way we think about, approach, and enjoy healthy eating. This book is out or was out on May 11th. It's been reviewed by Publishers Weekly, has a 4.8 rating on Goodreads and 4.6 rating on Amazon. All right, for those of you who have a green thumb, you'll want to check out Wild Creations by Hilton Carter. Dubbed the LeBron James of plant styling by Good Morning America, Hilton Carter shows how you can make, style, decorate, and care for your own stunning plant inspired interior with 25 step by step DIY projects and plant hacks. In Carter's previous books, he has given us glimpses into stunning plant filled homes where ivy and creeping figs hang miraculously from ceilings. Mosses grow effortlessly to create lively walls, and succulents flourish planted in terrariums. Now, in Wild Creations, he will show you how to create these amazing fixtures for your own home. There are step by step instructions for wild ideas, making projects such as a wall mounted plant and leather hanging plant stand, genius wild hacks for all of your plant worries, from how to water your plants while you are away to repelling bugs, thought provoking wild rants looking at the transformative power of plants, and finally, a detailed look at the 10 key wild plants and how to care for them. Design and learn about your very own wild interior. Get creative and get wild. This book was published on April 6th and has a Goodreads rating of 4.8 and 5.0 on Amazon. Very well reviewed. All right. If you've ever wanted to dabble in the ceramic arts, this next book might be the one for you. Learn how to master one of the most ancient yet simple and appealing ceramic techniques with Pinch Your Pottery, The Art Craft of Making Pinch Pots by Jackie Atkin, out on August 24th. Taught with a modern approach by a master potter, this amazing collection of pinch projects is the perfect place to start your new ceramics hobby or to explore new ways to shape clay as a more experienced crafter. Pinching is a wonderfully direct method of interacting with clay that allows for making a range of forms and styles. Projects are simple and small and require only a few tools and your own hands, plus your own creativity. Begin a new adventure with fabulous pinch ceramics and learn everything from choosing clay and a style of decoration to firing and beyond. Ranging from functional wares to purely decorative sculptural forms, each project is explained with a step by step sequences and plenty of options for surface decoration. And for the poets and lovers of poetry, we have The Hill We Climb and Other Poems by presidential inaugural poet Amanda Gorman. Out on September 21st, this collection includes The Hill We Climb, which was the stirring poem read at the inauguration of the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden. This collection of the same name reveals a collection of hope and healing by an energizing and unforgettable new voice in poetry. This book has received a 4.7 review on Goodreads and 5 stars on Amazon. All right, next up we have Somebody's Daughter by Ashley C. Ford. Named one of Forbes magazine's 30 under 30 in the media, in 2017, Ford debuts with an extraordinary, powerful memoir, the story of a childhood defined by an ever looming absence of her incarcerated father, and the path we must take to both honor and overcome our origins. And I do want to note that the description of this book does contain information about abuse and trauma. So, for as long as she could remember, Ashley has put her father on a pedestal. Despite having only vague memories of seeing him face to face, she believes he's the only person in the entire world who understands her. She thinks she understands him too. He's sensitive, like her, an artist, and maybe even just as afraid of the dark. She's certain that one day they'll be reunited again, and she'll finally feel complete. There are just a few problems. He's in prison, and she doesn't know what he did to end up there. Through poverty, puberty, and fraught relationships with her mother, Ashley returns to the image of her father for hope and encouragement. She doesn't know how to deal with the incessant worries that keep her up at night, or how to handle the changes in her body that draw unwanted attention from men. In her search for unconditional love, Ashley begins dating a boy that her mother hates, and when the relationship turns sour, he assaults her. Still reeling from the rape, which she keeps secret from her family, Ashley finally finds out why her father is in prison. And that's where the story really begins. Somebody's daughter steps into the world of growing up as a poor black girl, exploring how isolating and complex such a childhood can be. As Ashley battles her body and her environment, she provides a poignant coming of age recollection that speaks to finding the threads between who you are and what you were born into, and the complicated familial love that often binds them. This book was published on June 1st and has a 4.6 rating on Goodreads, as well as an ongoing starred review from Kirkus and Publishers Weekly. All right, this next title comes to us from Daniel James Brown, who is the best-selling author of The Boys in the Boat. And as a personal note, The Boys in the Boat is one of my favorite nonfiction books of all time, and this book is long awaited. So, Facing the Mountain, a true story of Japanese American heroes in World War II, is a gripping saga of patriotism and courage. The special Japanese American Army unit that overcame brutal odds in Europe, their families incarcerated back home, and a young man who refused to surrender his constitutional rights, even if it meant imprisonment. Based on Daniel James Brown's extensive interviews with the family of the protagonist, as well as deep archival research, Facing the Mountain portrays the journey of four Japanese American families and their sons who volunteered for the 442nd Regiment combat team and were deployed to France, Germany, and Italy. Much more than a war story, Brown also tells the story of these soldiers' parents, immigrants who were forced to shutter their businesses, surrender their homes, and submit to a life in a concentration camp on U.S. soil. Woven throughout is the chronicle of a brave young man, one of the cadre of patriotic resistors who stood up against their government in defense of their own rights. Whether fighting on the battlefields or in the courtrooms, these were Americans under unprecedented strain, doing what Americans do best: striving, resisting, pushing back, rising up, standing on principle, laying down their lives, and enduring. This book was published on May 11th, and it has a 4.4 rating on Goodreads and a 4.6 rating on Amazon. Reviews from Bookpage, Library Journal, and ongoing starred reviews by Booklist, Kirkus, and Publishers Weekly. Okay, our next title focuses on the consumer dilemma. We can't stop shopping, and yet we must. The Day the World Stops Shopping: How Ending Consumerism Saves the Environment and Ourselves by J.B. McKinnon investigates how we may achieve a world without shopping. The economy says we must always consume more. Even the slightest drop in spending leads to widespread unemployment, bankruptcy, and home foreclosure. The planet says we consume too much. In America, we burn the Earth's resources at a rate 5 times faster than we can regenerate it. And despite efforts to green our consumption by recycling, increasing energy efficiency, and using solar power, we have yet to see a decline in global carbon emissions. Addressing this paradox head on, acclaimed journalist J.B. McKinnon draws from experts in fields ranging from climate change to economics to investigate how living with less would change our planet, our society, and ourselves. Along the way, he reveals just how much we stand to gain: an investment in our physical and emotional wellness, the pleasure of caring for our possessions, closer relationships with our natural world and one another. This book was published on May 25th and has a 4.3 rating on Goodreads. It's also been reviewed by Booklist, Library Journal, with ongoing starred reviews by Kirkus and positive reviews by Publishers Weekly. Okay, our last nonfiction title, perfect for sports fans, is Glory Days: The Summer of 1984 and the 90 Days That Changed Sports and Culture Forever by L. John Wertheim. This was published on June 15th, has a 4.3 rating on Goodreads, and has been reviewed by Booklist, Publishers Weekly, and with positive reviews by Library Journal. Glory Days is a guided tour of one extraordinary summer when some of the most pivotal and freakishly coincidental stories all collide and change the way we think about modern sports. The summer of 1984 was a watershed moment in the birth of modern sports when the nation watched Michael Jordan grow from college basketball player to professional athlete and star. That summer also saw ESPN's rise to the media dominance as the country's premier sports network and the first modern commercialized profitable Olympics. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird's rivalry raged. Martina Navratilova and John McEnroe reigned in tennis, and Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon made pro wrestling a business, while Donald Trump pierced the national consciousness as a pro football team owner. It was an awakening in the sports world, a moment when sports began to morph into the market savvy, sensationalized, moneyed, controversial, and wildly popular arena we know today. Wertheim captures these 90 seminal days against the backdrop of the nostalgia stoked 1980s to show that this was the year we collectively traded in our ratty Converses for a pair of sleek, heavily branded, ingeniously marketed Nikes. This was the year that sports went big time.
Thank you for sharing those titles with us. I hope you guys were able to find something to add to your to be read pile, but if not, don't worry. Check out our other videos in this series. If you weren't able to check out the premiere of any video, you can access them through our YouTube and Facebook pages. Thank you and see you next week.